use of credit cards, grand theft, title fraud, VIN removal, and more. Simply put, these folks are not amateurs at what they do. This is very organized, very well thought out, very methodical in this criminal enterprise. Detectives also connected co-conspirator Marcos Cobo Gonzalez after recovering text messages and images that contained multiple Social Security numbers. Detectives believe he used the Social Security information for the purposes of tax fraud, and that investigation is ongoing. He too has a lengthy criminal history record. As you will see on these posters, these men and women did not facilitate your traditional retail crimes that we see up and down this I-75 corridor on a regular basis and that we routinely work. They went for big purchases, some amounting to more than $8,000 on a single receipt. You see some of the receipts and some of the merchandise here. As I mentioned, we have a very good working relationship with the loss prevention in this area from UTC all the way south. We routinely do retail theft operations, but we've not come across one of this magnitude, this size, and with this number of victims in our prior investigations. This investigation is complex, and it certainly isn't over yet. As detectives, personnel from DCFS and other law enforcement agencies are working to contact victims, and I can assure you that's a Herculean effort in and of itself, contacting these folks and trying to help them with the victimization that has occurred to them. The investigation is ongoing, and additional charges are pending. While 5 of the 7 people you see here are now behind bars, we are still looking for Roxana Ruiz and Eduardo Lamiguero. Warrants have been issued for their arrest, and we're actively looking for them. My understanding is they were last known to be in the Orlando area, but obviously they perpetrated crimes here in Sarasota County. So we would enlist your help. If anybody sees them or knows about their whereabouts, they can contact the Sheriff's Office. We'll be happy to stop by and pick them up. In the meantime, we want to use this opportunity to remind Floridians that cybercrime and fraud isn't going away anytime soon. So long as your personal information is out there, criminals will try to access that personal information. Continue to stay vigilant, looking daily at your credit card statements and bank accounts. Keep an eye out for unexplained charges, and listen carefully when you receive calls from creditors or retailers. This particular investigation, we kind of peeled that first layer of the onion because some of the retailers were contacting the folks that made some of these large purchases to follow up and thank them for their business and whatnot. And it was only after several of those folks said, we didn't shop at those retailers. And loss prevention knew right away in our partnership, they called us and said, something's not right here. The folks that we believe made purchases are saying that they did not make purchases with us. Detectives looked at it, and that kind of was the first layer of that onion, if you will. For the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, we will stay committed to preventing the next victim, but we can't do this unless we have the help of the public. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the good work of all those involved, first and foremost the men and women of the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. We had detectives drive over to Miami, get a hotel room, start executing search warrants, work with Hialeah PD, Miami PD, the Secret Service who's present here today, and a whole host of other agencies to get to the next layer of that onion, if you will. Many of these reported fraudulent activities have been reported to other jurisdictions, but I'm proud to say it was the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office and the men and women that work here that peeled that onion back, got to where we're at today, and it exposed that we have over 2,000 and probably more than that victims. I'd also like to thank the team at the Department of Children and Family Services. They've done a tremendous job. I've already thanked Secretary Hatch for the work that those folks have done in facilitating interviews for our detectives and being available and working going forward in this investigation with us. It's very important. Also, in terminating Mrs. Garcia once they were made aware of the breach in this with this information. We look forward to a continuing investigation and their support. I know we will get that. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Assistant Secretary Taylor Hatch. She'd like to make a few comments, and then we'll be happy to take any questions that you have. Assistant Secretary.
Thank you, Colonel. Good morning. My name is Taylor Hatch. I am the Assistant Secretary for the Florida Department of Children and Families Economic Self-Sufficiency Program. Secretary Chad Popple asked me to represent him here today due to a scheduling conflict. Please be assured the Secretary is aware of this issue and is receiving updates of the status of the investigation and DCF's response. First, I would like to thank the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office and the various law enforcement agencies who are seeking justice for the victims involved in this investigation. DCF's mission is centered on helping individuals and families across the state. Please allow me to be the first to say that the alleged actions of the individual involved in this investigation took critical resources away from the children and families who needed it the most. These actions are not reflective of the 12,000 DCF employees who serve vulnerable families day in and day out. The department immediately terminated this employee, and all access to DCF systems were revoked. Secretary Popple has ordered an immediate assessment of the department's public benefits systems to enhance safeguards, identify process improvements, and ensure that our program operates with the highest level of integrity. The department is working diligently to begin notifying anyone whose personal identifying information may have been compromised, and will be providing identity theft protection services to those individuals at no cost to them. Additionally, DCF is reviewing identity theft safety measures from private sector companies to implement within our program. We will continue to support law enforcement and coordinate with the Division of Public Assistance Fraud to hold anyone responsible for violating the public's trust accountable. Thank you for your time.
And with that, we can take a few questions.
So with Garcia, on all accounts, she didn't have a criminal record, had worked for DCFS since '93, which is a long time to be somewhere. Is she just a bad apple, or do you think there are other employees out there who are being targeted or, sought out as a gatekeeper?
Well, certainly that part of the investigation is ongoing. We're dealing with Mrs. Garcia at this point. I can tell you she was an intricate part of this extensive fraudulent activity. What her past is in terms of criminal history, obviously there is not a criminal history there, but she is a key player and at the top of the list right here with the cases that my detectives are working. I don't know if the Secretary wants to say anything more to that.
To how she fall in with all of them?
That's still an ongoing part of the investigation, but they're all interconnected, and it's our understanding that some of the other individuals were requesting specifically from her Sarasota individuals, this zip code, Hispanic male. It was an a la carte information, if you will, and that's how we got the victims here in Sarasota. So she's certainly knee-deep in this criminal enterprise.
Do we know who the ringleader of this was? Was this a operation? Who was in charge?
Well, Sam, the folks you see up here, they've all got a varied role to play in this, but certainly she's at the top because the information started with her, went down, then the fraudulent activity spread out around the state from there, so that's how we've represented it on the board. All of these individuals have played some integral part in the fraudulent activity that we've seen, but it certainly started with the large data breach that occurred. That's what started this.
These are the people that are supposed to be watching and taking care of our kids when they're in some of the worst positions. To know that they were doing this and stealing people's identity and buying all these expensive luxury items, it has to hit you really hard when you start to investigate them.
Yeah, for sure, and I'll let the Assistant Secretary speak to that if she wants to, but I can tell you, I was told by our detectives there was a woman who was trying to purchase a home, and her credit is messed up, and she's not going to be able to buy that home until this gets straightened out. And I mentioned this wasn't just adult identity theft that was stolen. There's also children that was stolen. And I think anyone here, I've been a victim of it myself on my own personal credit union account, and trying to undo that. And I applaud DCFS for assisting them with security of their accounts going forward, but it's a difficult task. I can tell you as a former prosecutor, I dealt with expungements all the time. I think you'd have an easier time getting a criminal charge expunged than you would cleaning up some of the credit reports that are going to come out of this several thousand victims that we know so far. So to your point, Kim, it's far-reaching implications for the victims for sure.
How young were the youngest victims?
I don't know if you know, Secretary? I just know that there were children below the age of 18 that their identity was compromised as well. And remember, this was not just a an address. I mean, these were date of birth, social security numbers, emails, fraudulent driver's license committed. My detectives tell me that these were not fictitious driver's license. These are, and the reason I don't have them up here because we're not going to further victimize these folks. These are real people. That's their driver's license number. That's their date of birth. That's their information with somebody else's photo on that driver's license. So there's a whole other level of trying to undo through DHSMV and all that kind of stuff. It's very far-reaching for the victims.
That's probably a better question for the secretary. And is this something where you're going to be looking at which employees have access to things like social security numbers? And is it really necessary for all employees at the agency to be able to access that personal information?
Certainly in this case, the employee's job duties permitted her to have access to those systems. However, the exploitation of that access is wholly unacceptable. And what I mentioned earlier, Secretary Popple, upon finding out, immediately asked for a full assessment of our public benefits system. That will include security enhancements that relate to infrastructure, relate to technology, policies, procedures, all with the goal of ensuring public trust and making sure that we have the highest level of integrity in our public benefit system.
A follow-up to that.
Sure.
These crimes, while shocking, are not uncommon. Why weren't there safeguards in place ahead of time to prevent something like this?
As I said before, what we're going to do is look at and assess the entire system, looking at it from an infrastructure perspective, security guards, cameras, all the way to technology enhancements in our policies and procedures to make sure that we have the highest level of integrity possible in our system.
Yes, ma'am.
You say there might be more victims, so what do you recommend to the community to do if they feel they could be a victim? And who do they have to reach? What do they have to
Certainly. If they call the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, we'll direct them to the Investigations Bureau. And I know in speaking with the detectives yesterday, Detective Campbell's here, Detective Verdoni's in the back, they're reaching out to the victims already. We realize that's a responsibility. We're not here just to investigate the criminal aspect of it, but we can help those victims be identified, connect them with Department of Children and Family Services to get that security protection. But we recognize part of our duty and our responsibility is contacting these victims. It's not just about the criminal prosecution of the case, and we're doing that.
Were the rest of them arrested in the Miami area?
Yes, all those were arrested in Miami. The two outstanding, we believe, last known to be in Orlando, but obviously they visited us on occasion here in Sarasota County. So if anybody sees them, please call the Sheriff's Office.
From a timeline standpoint, you said the investigation, I think, started in May. When did this, as far as your detectives can tell, when did this information start coming out of DCFS?
I don't know that we actually have the dates when that first came. I didn't get that from the detectives, but you're right, about May we first started looking at this. So it's been several months that we've been looking at it. Anybody else?
What were they doing with all this stuff? Just buying it to have it or buying it to sell it?
Yes. It would appear. Obviously, like I said, this is not your traditional retail theft ring. We normally deal, when you guys are seeing our press releases, it's clothing and handbags and the Burlington Coat Factory and the box stores and that kind of thing. This is obviously statewide and organized, so high dollar stuff and obviously trying to make a profit for sure.